as Chris Tucker would say, press the button. And the little girl was like, yeah, press the button. Press the goddamn button.
I did press the button. I did press the button. Oh my God, we're live. Hey guys, what's going on? We got the memes of destruction here. Say hi, memes. Hi, memes. As well as we got Captain Dade. I forget how I should address you now. I'm not sure if I should say
you
Dade,
can call
Captain
me Zero.
Dade's there. Okay, that makes things
call
so
me
much
Zero.
easier.
It's okay.
The oxygen on the planet.
I do not care that people call me Zero. That's fine.
It's far less syllables that I need.
I ditched that moniker a while back, but some people still call me Zero, and that's fine. They're going to get away with it. Just like when my daughter calls me Pops, and I fucking hate that. But then I turn around and do it to my dad, and he says, well, now you know how it feels. It's just going to be the way it is.
And that's why they appreciate when you were suffering in so much pain and couldn't speak much.
Yes.
Okay, but that's another story. So, so what I have Zero on here for is basically I wanted to have a quick discussion on some of the stuff and things that's going on in my home state that is not a state. We are a Commonwealth here in Massachusetts. And apparently at the end of August, we have a straight pride parade going on. And you know what? Hey, power to these folks. It's their constitutional right to do that. That's perfectly fine. I support free speech. While at the same time, other folks are able to use their free speech as well. My main concern is a lot of folks seem to be taking issue for that for a number of reasons, as we seem to be very head-on, balls deep into a culture war. Apologies for my misogyny. But the thing that I got going on here is I'm afraid because previously, about 2 years ago, when there was a freedom of speech rally in Boston, that's when there were some scuffles breaking out. I believe a gentleman actually got hit in the face, as well as a young woman got dragged to the ground while holding onto an American flag. So folks will want to concentrate energy in a particular direction. I'm looking to do a more positive direction rather than having any type of destruction here. I realize the whole utilizing the moniker the memes of destruction probably takes away a bit from that. But I went to boston.gov and I started going through the form and everything. And it looks like it could be up to $5,000 for filing for the permit, because if you're going to be closing down streets in Boston and everything, you also got to pay the emergency management folks. You got to pay the police and everything, because they want to make sure people are safe. So I am now entertaining and in the process of filling out a permit to start in honor of good old Jon Stewart, a rally to restore sanity and or turtles, because I like turtles, and the mimetic value of I happen to be born in 1984, which was also the first year that the original Mirage Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic came into existence.
I was just about to say I'm a fan of Turtles of the Ninja Variety kind myself.
I fully support putting highly colored only eye masks on. We don't need full face masks or anything like that. We want to pay homage because turtles are freaking cool, and sometimes it can be oozy, and apparently kids nowadays like the ooze and stuff. So Zero, we discussed this briefly before we went live. What are your thoughts on this? What's going on?
Thoughts of what?
Trying to put on an event for to allow people to have an outlet of frustration. I realize I didn't actually ask you a question. I was hoping you would just kind of go off on a rant that would entertain people.
Well, considering it's like 12:05 a.m. Central Time here, and I only have maybe an hour left in me before I conk out, I don't have the capability of going on rants. Because I think when we were talking about that other stuff, and I told you that I pretty much drew the line at the entire bit of outrage culture that the internet has bestowed upon us when it came to Ghostbusters 2016 and Captain Marvel. I pretty much said, fuck this shit, I'm out.
I'm looking to bring it back, man.
Well, I don't have a rant. I'm sorry. It's just, this is the United, I was watching the Dem Debate 2 through Steven Crowder's channel last night, and they had a few people on that were saying this is why America is great. And Razor Fist pointed out something about only in America can you have something that, and he names two specific things. I can't remember them right now, but one is it was basically you could have a donut shop next to a dialysis center. Only in America, and that's what makes America great. The fact that we could actually and that's not the exact quote, but he was pointing out is something severely negative. We can do something severely stupid, and then literally go right down the street and try to fix it.
But but wait, are you saying that one of my friends' buddies had a pizza shop sharing the same entrance with a diet clinic? There was something wrong with that?
No, that's what makes America great, because we can do stupid shit like that. That's the point. What I was getting to was that this is America. If you do everything right, if you have the right to peacefully protest, go ahead and do it. If the city that you live in requests that you pay a permit fee, which I believe is completely fucking stupid, but I get the reasons why. It is basically to quell the chaos and keep everything organized, then yeah, go for it. For as much as, because I put up on a meme a couple days back where Sinatra says, "Can somebody explain this to me?" And I think he was actually looking for why that the cartoon existed. And I had altered it, and I said they're both equally stupid to burn the LGBT flag as well as the American flag, but they're both protected under the law as freedoms of expression. And so again, that's ultimately my point. If you want to have a demonstration, if you want to have a pride parade of any kind, straight or gay, whatever, knock yourself out. But it's ultimately what you do with it that makes the difference. It's how you handle it. And by handling it, I mean you don't go full retard. One of the things that was brought to my attention is, and I'm not bashing anybody here, and if people think I am, I don't give a shit what you think. I've got my parents have an LGBTQ child card in my wallet, and I'll fucking bring it out anytime I want. Something that was brought to my attention is that 2019, and I don't know how long. I think this is the first year we've actually had people who we have a whole month of gay pride. And I'm like, we don't need a fucking month for this shit. We don't even need a week. You can have a day and call it that. But it gets to the point of it was brought to my attention by people in that community that identify that way. And not only does it not make that is not all of who you are, it's only a fraction of that makes it who you are. It's not your identity. Don't ever let it be that way. But it's embarrassing. I've been getting told by people that they say this is fucking embarrassing because it's making us look bad. And I said, why is that? I said, because for everything that I said, and that they're taking shit overboard because they want attention, because their mommy and daddies didn't love them enough or something. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that's fair. So if people want to do a straight pride parade, knock yourselves out. If you want to do a parade in Boston, knock yourself out. Go for it. Do it right and have a point to it. And don't let it get out of control, at least legal-wise. Have your ass covered and go forth and do, because that's what makes America great. Only in fucking America can you have two oppositional type parades happen for the reasons that they happen. They make the other one great. You can have a gay pride and a straight pride, which again I think is also fucking stupid, but that's just me. But you can do that. But you can still do that. That's my point. It's America. Only in America can you do this shit, and somebody will come and say, "Hey, that's great. I appreciate this." And then somebody will say, "Well, this sucks," but hey, that's okay because that's just their opinion. It's not fact.
Well, and that's one of the things, because if it is a constitutional right that the people have to gather and protest, and I think this was highlighted in what I considered at the time a very extreme form, when you would have folks like members of, like, I believe it was the Westboro Baptist Church, and they would go outside like fallen soldiers' funerals and stuff and be protesting and everything. And I remember at one point there was an instance where people were out there and they said, okay, they do have the freedom of speech to do that, because that's one of those things. It's like I remember at the time, like, how can they let this happen? And they're like, well, it is their First Amendment right. While they may have the First Amendment right to do that, I remember at one point another number of other people, they used their First Amendment right to basically block them from actually protesting. So they were using the freedom of speech to basically kind of used as a barrier to other people's freedom of speech. And they were doing it in a peaceful fashion, according to my recollection of the events there. And that in itself was inspiring. It's just like, okay, if you don't like what people are saying, you have the right to speak up and basically challenge what they're saying. And that's an example there. And that kind of goes into what we're seeing with like the whole culture war. Because you said at the point where you got to the Captain Marvel and stuff, you're like, was it the greatest movie ever? No. You
No,
said it was above average.
I'm gonna tell people what I thought of Captain Marvel. I said to you in private conversation something along these lines. Is it the best movie is it the best movie? Not really. It's above average. What I recommended to people, if you want to watch all the MCU movies, yeah, you should go ahead and watch it. It's got its highs, it's got its lows, it's got its sins, and it's got its virtues, which I would go to people, if you want to read my comments on that, go to Cinema Sins, Everything Wrong with Captain Marvel. I put some sins, I put some wins, and I would say if you just want to watch it as a movie, yeah, it's above average. It's worth watching as a regular movie. And there are parts in it that are factually, historically factual, and people are so fucking bent out of shape because of Brie Larson being an asshole. Well, you've got to learn to differentiate between the actor or actress and the actual movie and the product. Because if I got butthurt by every single thing every actor ever said, I would not have any of the fucking movies on that I own, especially Ant-Man and the Wasp, or anything that Lawrence Fishburne's in, because because of his political views. I don't lose any sleep at night thinking that Lawrence Fishburne doesn't like our president. I'm like, all right, well, that's his opinion.
Yeah.
Does that mean I'm going to stop watching Lawrence Fishburne movies? Hell no.
Yeah, no, you will separate the art from the artist. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. People don't do that. Now, in regards to falling on top of dead soldiers' caskets, personally, that's fucking offensive to me, because if you've got enough time to lean, you've got enough time to clean. And I don't believe that is actually protected under the United States Constitution, because a soldier's dead body, whether you like it or not, is personal property of the family. And that it violates a person's right to freedom and happiness, and the pursuit of happiness, to put their family member to rest and to be buried and to celebrate their life or their loss. And that's something that was brought to my attention when I saw that happen. And I said, that actually makes sense. So no, they were out of bounds. I don't think it was considered a call to action, but they crossed the line, because they stripped the free will of the people who lost, the families who lost their family that served as soldiers that protect our country. When you do shit like that, and you strip a person's right to mourn, you take action against them, and you violate their free will to be able to mourn or to celebrate the life of a lost soldier who chose to serve and protect us as Americans. So you and I just are going to have to agree to disagree with that.
Well, that's the thing. I'm basing that off of, I believe, what the Supreme Court had ruled at the time. But I mean, I'd say if there was an argument for that, I mean, I'd say a fallen soldier's right to privacy.
Yeah.
I mean, just that right there is that. But oh wow, it just took a downward turn there, man. But no, trying to basically circumvent and just kind of go back to what we were kind of talking about. Basically, the idea we were kind of kicking around, and I'd let you know a little bit before here, was basically I had gone on to what was it, The Professionals, where Some Dumb American and Weibo Jones, and I had asked, I'm like, I'm thinking about doing something, but I don't know what to do. And Weibo just came straight up and was like, my same answer for everything: karaoke and booze. I'm like, that is an excellent idea, young Padawan. You are wise beyond your years. So I took that idea and I'm like, all right, so how would you do this? All right. So I'm going to need to file a permit for the event. So I'm going to need to get some speakers, a generator, probably some canopies and stuff, and then basically just publicize it, and maybe some folks will show up. And the goal is to do primarily some 80s based karaoke, because Frickin' who doesn't like blaring 80s music? I don't really plan on serving actual booze at the event. However, I'm probably going to actively, or at least say it's not the worst idea for individuals of the age of drinking to have a swing back a few brews and sing some 80s tunes with us, and we'll also while honoring turtles, because I mean it's 2019, since the internet and real life are
Well,
starting to merge together. I mean,
yeah, you can flip that on its head too by saying that like there are places that serve alcohol to adults, and then if there are minors there, they of course get like Shirley Temples. You can do that.
well, it's an outside event. I'm not going to be
Yeah.
actually utilizing a venue. I'm not looking to make any money off of this. I'm just
No, but
looking.
that's my point.
Yeah.
If a lot of people think it's strictly for adults and there's going to be drinking, you can actually make it like a BYOB thing, because if you're going to have karaoke, that's a family thing, and a lot of bars that I've been to, they will basically say, hey, if you're not, we're doing karaoke from this time to this time, and everybody's going to come in, but you show your ID if you're going to drink. But if we know you're a kid, we're going to serve you Shirley Temples, and we're going to let the soda, we'll sell you sodas, and we're going to keep the kitchen open, and then everybody has a good time. And then when that karaoke time's over, they go strictly back to being a bar. That's what my point is. You can take that idea, kind of flip it on its head, and say, hey, this is for everybody. The adults can drink. Kids, you can have your Shirley Temples and your sodas. Come on out and do the karaoke. Let's just have freedom of expression and have a good time. Don't, and I'm not saying you're doing this, I'm just saying don't let people think that, and don't let it just be adults only. Because that the kids want to get, kids love, there are kids that are millennials and younger, they like 80s music, they like 70s music, because they realize their music sucks on a certain level.
Well,
But again, that's for another topic.
well, yeah, and at the same time, who doesn't like Shirley Temples? I mean, I love that stuff back in the day. It's like, oh, it's got a cherry and everything, and they were the maraschino type and everything.
Yeah,
And
I remember when my dad used to take me bowling before I started in the junior league in junior high. We would sit down, watch him and his team bowl, his company team bowl, and my mom and I were. My mom was talking to her friends, and I would go off and play the arcade games. Yes, kids, there were actually fucking arcade games back then. You all got hosed. I think you were actually one of the last type, your tail end of that, actually being able to go into the arcade and put
my 10th birthday was at Discovery Zone, and I had infinite tokens. And coincidentally enough,
Exactly.
I used the majority of those tokens to play Turtles Through Time to the end.
Oh, they had that out, because I had the 4-player Ninja Turtles.
Yeah. No, yeah, it was the 4-player one and stuff. My cousin and I.
Turtles in Time was the SNES exclusive, but you get the point. It's I would go down and watch my dad bowl, hang out with my mom. They'd keep the kitchen open, so of course that was like on the Friday night. That was our junk food night, and we'd have the Shirley Temples with the cherry, and of course they didn't really like putting in extra cherries because you had your parents pay more, but there was always that one cool bartender like, yeah, here, 3 or 4 extra, nobody gives a shit. So.
Oh, dude, the little things that bring us back to our younger years.
Well,
and stuff like that.
and I think kids these days get hosed, but I think that's also where you live. But in regards to your idea, it's not. It'd be good if you could have the possibility of saying, "This is what I plan on doing, and I want people of all ages to be able to come, have a good time, do some karaoke, be a little wired, go home a lot tired, and have freedom of expression, freedom of choice, freedom of voice, and celebrate their right to be in the only country in the fucking world that can let you be an idiot for an hour and go home and then be serious again."
So it's almost kind of as well a freedom of speech, a freedom of expression rally. Actually, that would kind of go very well, because basically, I mean, Super Happy Fun America, the organization that happens to be putting on the Straight Pride Parade.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they are trying to be inclusive, and they're basically inviting many people. I believe the only people they're not inviting, I believe, are Antifa, which they say stands for anti-fun. So basically,
well, Antifa has been recognized as a terrorist organization, and not to go dark on the topic, but they have started so many problems that you can basically now arrest them on site. And if they and you don't have to wait for a police officer. You can basically cuff them and call it a day. You can cuff them and bag them. They are
I don't think you're allowed to manhunt people yet, and I think that was only
no.
in New
If you
Jersey.
no, if you have an event and they show up and they're not welcome there, like anything else, because Antifa is now recognized as a domestic terrorist group, you can exercise your citizens' right within your state laws to say you are under arrest. If they say, "What, are you serious?" They say yes, and you quote the citation of where you do that, and they now have two choices. They can either leave or they can be placed under arrest and held until the police take them away. In the state of Iowa,
Okay.
if
I
a
was going to say, I don't think those are the current laws on the books of
that's why
Massachusetts. So we're
that's
not going to
why
be going
that's
around and
no
citizens
no, but
arresting people unless somebody actually attacks somebody and it would be necessary. But
this
it's
is
in
why I
downtown
tell
Boston.
everybody, read your city and state laws.
Hmm.
Know them inside and out. Here's a minor example because I don't want to see you too far from the subject. In the state of Iowa, I believe it is regulation 714 or 712. Reasonable lethal force. If a person breaks into my house with a knife, I can whip a gun out and shoot him in the leg because that person has broken into my house and with a knife will be viewed as an intent to cause bodily harm.
Yeah. Well, you have the 21 foot rule.
If a person breaks into my house and is unarmed, I do not have the right to shoot them in the leg. I do not have the right to stab them. I can basically punch them in the face, and I can break an arm or a leg, and I can restrain them and have them taken away. That's the reason. That's the reasonable force versus the deadly force. But I also know this because I read the state and city laws.
That's very
So
interesting because Zero, you actually fall almost exactly in between New Hampshire and Massachusetts. I happen to do work in New Hampshire, so in New Hampshire, there's like full on castle doctrine. If someone breaks into your house, you can utilize deadly force to end that situation.
mhm.
In Massachusetts, if somebody breaks into my house, I have a duty to retreat until I can no longer retreat. So it's like you almost need to be hiding, lying prone in your closet. Somebody needs to be breaking into the closet, and then you can fire 2 shots at Central Mass if that happened to be the
Well,
situation.
that also varies the situation. Let's say you live in a duplex to where you live on the top floor and the only way in or out is your stairwell.
Mm.
If a person breaks into your stairwell and that is your only course, only way in or out, well, you basically say, hey, you're blocking my way to get out or to safety. I now have to go on the offensive. But that's beside the point. My point ultimately is in regards to parades or demonstrations or anything else, to know your city and state laws implicitly about that subject. The home defense, the reasonable lethal force was just an example of what I know is fact for where I live in the state of Iowa. And I was making a comparison between the two because when people know these laws and somebody comes in and they're going to be lawbreakers, the people who know the laws say, hey, we know you can't be here. We're going to ask you kindly to leave. You get one warning. If not, we can now cuff you to a, like, let's say an Antifa member shows up and they say, well, I'm going to do this, and say, oh, you basically made a call to action. Okay, you're now under arrest because whatever law says this, I can now cuff you to the park bench till the cops get here. And there's nothing you can do about it, and it will hold water in a court of law. This is one of the many ways that people can say, hey, because I know this, we can now guarantee a safe and productive environment for whatever situation. That because you can now say, I can legally cover my ass.
Oh, no. I hear what you're saying there, man. It's just I'm not looking to go out and just be arresting people and stuff.
And I'm not advocating anybody does this, but it's the simple knowledge of when you have parades. Because here's something that I saw that I thought was interesting, and it was in Des Moines, Iowa, and I thought it was very embarrassing. They had a pride parade to where I believe. Hold on a second. I am going to use Google Speaks. Caitlin Bennett, Des Moines, Iowa. Okay, so from what I remember is, conservative activist claim she, and of course I don't fucking believe Google, but Caitlin Bennett was attending a rally in Iowa when there were two instances in Iowa where she was assaulted by Pete Buttigieg supporters, and then in Des Moines, she was asked by the Des Moines police of all people that you need to leave because you're causing a disturbance at a gay pride parade. And I did not let this fucking thing go. But she was exercising her right to freedom of speech. But from the flip side of that is she could have been viewed as causing a disturbance. So when she's asked to leave politely, and if she was to deny leaving, then you have to get the police involved, or you can basically say, hey, you have to leave because this is the situation. I kind of lost my train of thought, but the point is,
Well, that's the thing. I mean, knowledge is power, man, and that's one of the
right?
things I think a lot of times we're missing out on, and why a lot of folks end up in certain situations that could be avoided if they were aware of their local legislation, the laws on the books. Because I'll be straight up, dude. When I was younger with some of my friends, we were doing stupid stuff. One of my buddies, he happened to have booze in his trunk. We were underage. Officer happened to ask him if he could search it. He didn't know that he had the right to deny the officer the right to
Yeah.
actually search the vehicle, and he ended up getting brought in and stuff. And we actually ran into him a couple hours later. He had bailed himself out. I was just walking along the street, and my buddy who had given us a ride, we ended up picking him up. But dude, it was a horrible situation that I actually ended up putting him in because I'm like, oh, let's go back to that party. Yeah, you never go back to a party. That's just a terrible idea. So of course I ruined everything.
See, here's the thing. This is a situation where people go the complete opposite and stupid route. Is that a gay liberal and former NBC reporter threatened to run over Caitlin Bennett with his car at the Capital City Pride Fest in Des Moines, Iowa. Okay, me reading that sentence alone is a violation of at least 6 Iowa state laws, and that is technically a call to action. I'm going to hit this person with my car is not freedom of speech. Whether you like the fact that Caitlin Bennett was there as a member or not a member of the press, she has a right to be there because she's an American. She has a right to go to the Pride Fest and say, hey, I would like to get some stuff on video and ask you an opinion. Now, if a person says no, she will say, okay, and she has done this. She has said, okay, I'm going to go over here and ask somebody else. But the second you say, well, I'm going to hit you with my car because I don't like that you're a woman, or I don't like the fact that you're conservative, you've basically violated your freedom of speech is gone because you've made a call to action. The fact that you would say something like that to Caitlin Bennett, I'm going to hit you with my car. Okay, in the state of Iowa, that's intent to harm. That's attempt of manslaughter. That's attempted vehicular homicide if possible. And that is at least at the very minimum of failure to report an automobile incident, which is a misdemeanor.
Oh,
So you can see how that is the exact opposite of what one would want to accomplish with what you're doing. This is why your state law is saying, okay, if we get people from Antifa coming over here and they're going to be problematic, we can't be this way like people were to Caitlin Bennett. And if a pride parade is supposed to be everybody's accepted, well, saying this to a person because she's a conservative, you basically broke the law. You basically squashed the entire idea of what the pride parade originally stood for. And so it's an example of what not to do in a parade.
Well, right. You don't want anybody threatening anybody or trying to incite violence and stuff. That's not cool, man. And that is basically at the limit of the First Amendment. It's like, all right, where do your rights end as an individual? Your rights end where another person's rights begin. And if you're going to actually threaten physical harm upon an individual, I'm sorry, man. You don't do that. We're looking to actually help bring people together. And one of my goals, man, is it's like I just see all this hatred in the world right now, and it's just people are driving each other apart. And it's like you actually had brought up, man, like the whole point of social media was meant to help like bring people together. Right now, it just seems to be driving folks apart, and that's a big problem. I just want folks to just kind of just take a moment to step back and just realize we really are all more similar than we are different, but we do each have our own unique life experience. So
well, it's like I was telling my sister in a situation that we were talking about, which I will not get into detail because it would totally derail the point, is people hide behind their keyboards and they think that they're anonymous and they can do whatever, say whatever they want because they say, oh, it's my freedom of expression, my freedom of speech. But when somebody else does that, especially on the opposite of the political spectrum, they start making problems. And it's kind of like, well, you think you can do it over here to this group, but they can't do it to you. That's not how it works. In America, I'm sorry to tell you this, people, in America, we have what's known as a right to agree to disagree. And the best example of the right to agree to disagree is when people, is basically, as I told you, and I will say this because it's relevant, when people talk about the 2016 Ghostbusters movie, it's okay not to watch the movie. It's okay to watch the movie. You can agree to disagree about the movie. It's just a movie. The
Wait a
problem is,
second.
people went completely apeshit because of the internet. Social media turned it into some kind of monster, to borrow a phrase from Metallica. Now, please put me on mute. I'm away from the computer and I have to go do something.
All right, I got you, man. I'll toss you on mute right now. All right, Zero, you are muted. Yeah, and this is just something that I've kind of noticed because it's like, all right, if you start following different YouTubers, folks on the Twitters and stuff like that, you just kind of start to see like what they're saying about all these different things. And you know what? Hey, I think most folks, especially depending on where they're coming from, they're trying to do something. A lot of folks, they see the world as they see it. But we also live in the clickonomy, so we've incentivized more or less outrage because if you have something that's actually very topical, then written in a very straight way, it's kind of like, all right, a thorough analysis of tax reform and how it's going to affect you in your bracket versus president rapes woman 20 years ago. It's just, I mean, one's factual and it's probably actually going to affect you, and the other is just salacious. But I mean, those are the things that people like to click because, I mean, Rule 14 of the internet, everyone loves a good dumpster fire. So, I mean, I fall into this case. It's just like, I love drama. It's just one of those things. Your just eyes are drawn to it. It's just something you want to constantly follow. But it's like, is it the most productive thing? Are we actually moving forward as a society? It's like, dude, if we actually got over ourselves and we like cleared our cachet of hatred and just stored in the past there, if we actually buckled down and like put our just rears in gear, man, dude, in a freaking millennia, we could literally be pushing Star Trek like actual like shit. So like that's the thing. We could do this stuff. We just need to get over ourselves.
Well, and a part of that is knowing when and where to pick your battles. People feel that, especially on social media, they can stick their nose into everything. And there are a lot of people out there that still exist that do not like people sticking their nose into other people's business. Yes, everybody does have the worldwide. This is not just an American thing. The only thing that's genuinely American is the baby boomer generation. That's solely America's biggest fuck up. No other country ever had the baby boom we did. But everybody across the world has a right to say their peace of mind because that's just an inherent human quality. You don't have to be a constitutional republic. I'm sorry, people, but we are a constitutional republic. We're not a democracy. The last democracy that genuinely existed was Rome. Go read your fucking history books that aren't edited out and censored, and you'll realize how fucking fast that went downhill. But my point is, everybody on the planet, whether you, and this goes back to agreeing to disagree, everybody has a right to say their piece because that's how we are as human beings. And that's again bringing it back to the very subject of what you want to do is you want to say your piece. You want to be able to let people say their piece. You want to help people know that it's okay to agree to disagree without having it become dramatic or problematic. But again, people make drama because they are severely bored. And if you're so fucking bored that you've got to bitch about a movie or a song or a parade instead of just saying, you know, what do I think about Captain Marvel? It's just a movie. You've got to figure. People have to figure out what they want to do or what they want to take away from something to where whether or not they're going to be able to sleep at night. Because I go to bed every night, and the only thing that I think about when I go to bed is what am I going to make for breakfast in the morning in about 6 to 7 hours. I don't lose any sleep over shit, especially on social media.
And that's the thing. It's just as human beings, I mean, we've developed over thousands of years to deal with other human beings on like a face-to-face basis. Over the past 100 years, we've kind of like developed to basically kind of like being able to focus on just audio and kind of be able to separate that out a bit. Because right now, I just happen to have my camera on. I'm not using the little dragon, which I have my new little dragon avatar. It's Brittany made it for me. It's really cool. I like it. Slash Horrorboros and voice, aka Nerd. Now he threw a little color background, but I'm completely sidetracked. No, but it's like you can see me, you can see my like hand gestures and everything, or even if I just do audio, you can hear the different inflections in my voice. However, I mean, Zero, we all know 140 to 280 characters. That's more than enough to discuss like the world's major issues and come to an accord within a couple of tweets, man.
Well, here's also another thing. On computers these days, they have what's known as a snipping tool. And if you can't say something within the characters of what you can tweet out, you can actually multi-tweet, cut everything out, paste it together, make one big image to where you can have everything, single thing you want to say said, and then in your actual tweet say, read below statement. Boom, you're still getting more than what Twitter allows or whatever social media platform would allow, and you're able to say your piece in extensive wording if you want. It's a technological tool that is actually beneficial on like a lot of things. People just have to decide when, where, and what type of tools to use that media provides. I would go further to say within the past 10 years, we've basically been very counterproductive to what we have known for thousands of years of how to interact with people face to face because of the internet. Now that's not a complete that's just a broad generalization statement, because there are tools that people use to, like, if you're over in one part of the country and you got to talk to, if you're on the East Coast and you got to talk to a business in the West Coast, you can still use face-to-face applications to where you can video call and you're still seeing the person's face, you're still hearing their inflections. Again, that's the plus side of technology. But a lot of times with Twitter being the glorified text messaging system, because that's all it really is, we do the exact opposite. We lose everything. Now, a lot of people notice that my avatar here is my face, so I don't ever have to go on camera. You can look at my face and you can hear my voice. You can hear the inflections and tones in my voice, and you could probably make some kind of facsimile in your head, like, yeah, I can see this guy saying that.
Yeah.
And that's what it is what it is. But my point is, ultimately, with a parade, it's getting back to the basics of good, positive, and by positive I mean something that has a positive connotation to it, a social interaction, face-to-face time, which is sorely needed outside of the realm of the internet or even video calling systems.
Mm. No, well, that's one of the things, dude.
Downright hands-on type stuff.
Dude, we were talking like right before this, like we're pretty much I think, one of the last generations where like a good portion, if not all of our childhood, we still remember going outside,
Oh yeah, we
picking up a stick, beating a tree with like your cousins and your friends.
I don't know.
Giant monster.
I don't know about you, but I was up at like 5 in the morning on Saturdays. I was up at 5 a.m. I watched cartoons for 4 hours straight. Went out from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. And the only thing that we'd ever do is come home for lunch and then run in and out of the house, get yelled at. Close! What are you, born in the barn? Close the door. And then 10 o'clock comes around. It's like, oh shit, it's nightfall. Let's go home. And then Sunday, and since most of my friends were Catholic, they would go to church. I didn't, because I'm Protestant. But I'm Baptist. I'm more Baptist these days than anything. But it's Sunday. You basically spend time with family, get ready, go back to school on Monday. So you had your weekend on Friday and Saturday, and as soon as school was out, you'd be out till 10 o'clock. You'd be out till 10 o'clock at night. Saturday, you were out all day, and nobody gave a crap because there was that FaceTime. Everybody's parents knew everybody, even if they didn't always get along, but everybody knew everybody's kids. And it's not what Hillary Clinton said, it takes a village to raise a child. No, asshole. It's the fact that the, the village didn't have any idiots because all the parents knew each other and all the kids knew each other.
Well, I
And
think
that
it was one more.
they were willing to feed each other's kids if necessary and not say, here's a grocery bill because your kid ate my cake.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the things. It's basically the folks in the immediate neighborhood, the folks that are around you, your neighbors and stuff. Dude, I'll be straight up. Like, dude, I've been slacking on this stuff too. Aside from my neighbors on either side, I mean, I don't really know aside from maybe just the occasional wave or stuff. Just because, like, these are things I've been meaning to do, and then you get busy, and then you work out of state, you're traveling around, and it's like, is an excuse. I'm using it as an excuse. It doesn't mean it's a good excuse. It shouldn't be an excuse. There is no excuse. Just because we try to, we self-justify in our mind. It's like, all right, I'm supposed to do this. I could do this. Oh, but then I'm going to spend X amount of time doing this. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it mañana. And then that turns into weeks, months, years go by. And it's like, dude, we can do so much better. Because I remember those days where it's like, okay, so and so down the street, it's like, all right, maybe they drank an extra glass or two of wine, but if you're not driving anywhere and you're still an adult, it's like, yeah, guess what? I can still make you a cheese sandwich. I'm not going to send you the invoice for the cheese sandwich, but that just people would take care of other people, and you knew the folks in the neighborhood, man. Like I still remember before we had leash laws, dude. If there was a dog that was unfriendly in the neighborhood, and you saw it, you avoid the dog, you walk around it. Now, am I saying like certain regulation is bad? I'm like, no, dude, certain regulation, as long as it's reasonable and it makes sense and you're doing it on the right basis, as long as it's a local or state ordinance, you don't need to necessarily do federal for everything. For certain things, yeah, that makes sense. But that's what a lot of folks are complaining about. They're they either want to cede power or they are terrified of ceding power, especially to like a federal authority. And the thing that got me really thinking about this, which really makes me think we are more similar than we are different, I think it was on Academic Agent, or I think it was the Distributist channel, actually. I always get those guys confused because they're very professorial and stuff. But basically, there was an individual who's a communist, and there was an individual that was a distributist. And one individual, like the distributist gentleman, I believe he was describing his method of, he's like, well, I want to see a lot of folks helping folks basically within the community and stuff. And he had the gentleman that was a communist, like, but that sounds what I want. And ultimately, if you break it down, it's like one is more locally based, the other is more federally based. So I'm like, wait a
Yeah,
second. The only
exactly.
disagreement we have is on a few semantics and some scale. Really?
Well, one is a political ideology and one is not. An example is a good example would be uh, when I was a kid, and as I just said, we'd get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, we'd watch cartoons till 9 a.m., and then we'd be out all day playing. Um, Locally would mean it just depends who wants to serve lunch. If like now the Catholic family down the street, I'm not going to say their last names because we don't even live in the same town anymore. But I don't want to dox this person because they will call me up and get pissed off at me. Their family was mom, dad, 3 kids. My family was mom, dad, 2 kids, and my sister, being younger than me, had her own set of friends, and I had my own set of friends. So I would go down and eat at their house because every Saturday, it's not because they're a Catholic family, but because they were a Catholic family. And I know that sounds contradictory. They always had big lunches, but that's because there's 5 people, not because they're Catholic. It's because they had 5 people that were going to eat lunch. So they say, hey, let's make an extra plate for Dave because he's going to come over anyway. He's playing with our kids. We'll throw on a couple extra sandwiches, no big hoop-de-doo. And my parents didn't care. I was like, yeah, that's fine, feed your kid. And then the next week would turn around, we'd have a sleepover at my house, and my parents were like, hey, we're gonna have a sleepover. We're gonna order pizza on Friday night. We got the 2 kids here and the 3 kids come down. We got the 5 kids taken care of, and the adults were all good. And their parents would go out and have a good, adult night. They'd be like, let the parents have, kids stay over at our house because this is how we roll. You two go have a, mom and dad night, go out and go dancing and stuff. and that's local communication. That's why it's different than what a communist would want, where they would want a federal thing to come in and say we control everything. And it's like, oh, well, see, that's the thing. It's ultimately political ideology and control.
No, that's why I say a lot of times we're arguing over semantics and scalability here. I realize
That's,
no, there
that's
is,
what always makes the difference.
yeah, because
That's why people get pissed off.
yeah, because what may work for your local community may be different than my community, may be different than from your state than from my Commonwealth and stuff. And
Right.
then what may work here in these United States of America may be different than what's over in the UK in current day. Because you got to look at the whole thing, dude. Because we're human beings, dude. We're complicated creatures, and especially when you got like over 7 billion us roaming around the earth, dude. Like that's a lot of factors combined with the infinite number of factors that affect everybody on an individual basis and as a whole, dude.
Well,
That's hard.
again, it breaks down to one side wanting to overpower the other, and that violates a person. And I will say a person because if we're talking countries, that's a whole big mess unto itself. But it's the same idea of one side wants to overpower the other, which violates the basic human right of I have my own autonomy. I have the right to be able to have my own thoughts and ideas. And once you try to overstep those bounds and you get in my face, and you try to force your will upon me, you basically violated my right to exist, and you violate my free will, which is ultimately, whether people like it or not, a religious belief, which is a religious ideology, which is part of a religious ideology of because of whatever deity you believe in, we have the right to have our own thoughts and our own behaviors and our own opinion, which I stated earlier, and we all do. But when one tries to overpower another, it violates free will, and that's where you have the problems. It's not so much, hey, we're going to take care of your kids this week because we're going to have a party and we're going to have a sleepover and you guys go out and have mom and dad night. Totally different thing. And so when you want to have a gathering like you're trying to do, you want to be able to say, you want it to be more like, hey, we're going to have a pizza night over here, bring the kiddies, as opposed to some other organizations of, we want to control what you're doing and you're going to do it how if it's done just, you can have it your own way if it's done just how I say it. That's not how it works. You're trying to promote people coming together and saying, hey, we're going to have a big old pizza party. Let's do this.
That I actually like what you said there, Zero, just for the sheer fact of, especially if you have kids around, you're turning into a family event where folks can go up there and say their piece. Let's face it, man. Typically, if you got a bunch of kids around, folks tend to behave better in general, I think.
Most people.
And again, that's why I have to say in general. The reason why I say that is because while folks, if they just see other folks that they ideologically disagree with, like on the other side of the street, they might start hurling insults. Are you really going to be hurling as many insults if there's a little like 5-year-old girl standing right next to you? It's like, really? Do you want to be that dude? And I get it. Some people will. However, if you see a lot of kids and you realize it's more of a kid style place, people tend to behave a little better. And the folks that don't, other people will usually are more apt to speak up rather than if it's just a bunch of adults and somebody kind of starts just causing like some trouble, whatever that may be, and they're trying to escalate things. If there's other folks around and it's just a whole bunch of drunk adults or something, that's when you start having issues. Whereas if it's a family event, and yeah, if this person has a glass of wine or a beer or something, and you see this kids around and you're jamming out to some cool 80s music, and you got folks up there doing karaoke, and you're having a good old time, man, it's like you're probably going to be less hateful and stuff. Because if you're the folks having the fun, then I mean, what are folks going to do? You're just trying to like hate on other folks. If you see, and my thing is too, if we're having a great old time, it's like maybe some folks from the other parade, maybe they'll come over. Maybe we'll bust it down on the dance floor with Milo Yiannopoulos. I'm sure he's got a few moves or something. I'd like to see that. I think that would be interesting. So that's just kind of the idea, to kind of just show that like we're all human beings, man. We are more similar than we are different, but we do each have our own unique life experience, man.
Something that just popped into my head. I had this very fond memory from being a teenager. back in 1989, 1988, 89. I remember sitting on my porch with my neighbors, and in my neighborhood, we had a nice little blend of black, white, and Hispanic, and that's because all our parents worked. All our parents had roughly similar jobs, which was in a factory setting on various levels, and thankfully, nobody ever got too egotistical about anything. But we would sit on a porch, and we would talk about music, and we would break out our cassettes, and we would switch the cassettes out, and it would literally be 1 minute we would have a Madonna song, the song after that was something from Guns N' Roses, and the song after that was something from LL Cool J, and we did that for like an hour, but we all brought our own cassettes. People don't do that these days for whatever reason, because of, and I still think that all breaks down to ego, attitude, and political ideology, that Gen X has kind of bungled some things, and everybody else before Gen X is dying out and taking advantage of discord and chaos as much as possible. But that's something that I would think that you would strive for at your event. Is it's music, different varieties, but it's music, and people can try to learn something from something else without saying this sucks, that sucks, blah blah blah. And that's the downside to Generation X, which is why I agree with Razor Fist. 1990s, go the fuck away, because that was the 1990s, around the whole Nirvana era. Fuck those guys. They're the ones that, not Nirvana itself, but that made that generation so fucking, that turned everything on its head, and why we've been kind of on a downslope for certain things. But my point is, we need to get back to where we can basically just sit on a porch and play different types of music without having a problem. But that's a long road to hoe, and I don't know if we can ever get back to that, because I think, as you said, we're the last generation to be able to do that.
Well, let's make being a kid great again. And the reason why I say that is just well, excuse me, before I digress, I will digress. So Zero, what you're saying is you were a stoop kid sitting on a stoop playing your mixtapes?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. I just needed to verify that, and to just kind of go on, like the sheer fact that music, I do believe music is one of the three things that I've been able to identify that cut across all of humanity. You got music, you got food, and you got love. And those are the three things that just, I don't care where you are on this planet. Those are the things that just, they bring people together. Just no matter what's going on, dude. Just because it's like, I still remember seeing, I think it was like a Chinese prison camp where they had like 100,000 people like busting out to Michael Jackson and like Thriller and stuff. And it's like, maybe it was in Mexico. My apologies. I forget where it was, but it's just like, you literally have thousands of individuals that are incarcerated that are having an absolute blast jamming out to this music that they enjoy. And even in that situation, that's another situation where a lot of folks now, you need to be able to try to separate the art from the artist as well, regardless of whatever you think may or may not have happened in that situation. Because let's face it, dude, I mean, we're all rife with sin. I mean, aside from like a newborn kiddo, like pretty much everybody has done something or whatnot. I mean, unless be like you're a god, that's the thing, dude. It's we're imperfect creatures. We all say stupid shit, and we all tend to act in our own self-interest. But I stand by that most folks are good people, just because my experience in life, like I've gone down some paths that have been kind of dark and stuff like that, and been to points where it's like you just want to give up on everything, man. But just it would always be just a small act of kindness, just a single act that I didn't deserve at all, that someone would just do a small little thing to me, and that always brought me back. And that's what's convinced me of just how I see things. So yeah, I just want to try to bring that to some other people and just show them that there are good folks, even if you vehemently disagree with them. We're all human beings, man.
It's like I said, because it's about 1:00 Central Time, my time, and I'm getting ready to tap out.
Yeah, I hear you.
It's like I said, people have to understand that it's okay to agree to disagree. That's one of the fundamental things that I think we've lost, especially since Obama was president. And people can get mad at me all they want. I genuinely believe since 2008 we have gone downhill drastically, and I think that's one of the social skills that and social skills and social graces are two different things, people, but I think this one thing tends to cross boundaries in both social skills and social graces is knowing when it's okay to say, let's agree to disagree, and genuinely be able to agree to disagree, because you will not hashtag change my mind on certain, or change my mind on certain things, because that's just the way it goes. But that doesn't mean you have to get aggressive, defensive, or severely negative about it.
And that,
We've got to be able to learn to make humanity great again by saying it's okay to agree to disagree, because Memes and I do not see eye to eye on a lot of things. Not only is it because of our age difference, but it's also because of where we were raised and where we live now, our political ideology. But that's not the biggest thing. The biggest thing is just because we have similar yet slightly different life experiences. And we understand that it's okay to agree to disagree. Because there have been times that I've called him a fence sitter right to his face, and I will not take those back. But he's just kind of like, well, it is what it is. And that's it is what it is, and it's okay to agree to disagree. We've got to get that back as not only a social skill, but as a social grace. We need to give each other a break sometimes on the minute shit, because that becomes the mountain that's the molehill that makes the mountain. And we have too many molehills becoming mountains.
The tallest mountain started as a stone. And I really think what you hit on right there, man. I think we could all use a little bit more tolerance in this world. So, Eddie, any final thoughts to wrap up, man?
I would say good luck with what you're about to do, because you are going to undertake a task that is going to be very difficult. And no, I will not sing. My neighbors would not appreciate it, especially in my now very much smaller house.
I'm not going to ask you to violate any news
But
ordinance.
I would be more than happy to. I would more than be happy that if you live stream, say, "Hey, I'm doing this certain day, and I want you to come on." I would be more than happy to jump in, add my 2 cents, do some colorful, tasteful commentary, and then bow out. But to everybody out there in the future, that because anything after this moment is the future, which will become the present, which will then become the past. To the past, the future to the past is now. Wait, what was it? To the future, the present is now the past, and to the past, the present is now the future. But all three exist simultaneously. So to that I say, take these words that I'm about to say as my final words very seriously. There's nothing wrong with being able to agree to disagree. And the sooner that you realize that, the better you will sleep at night. And the best amount of sleep that you can ever get is when you can go to bed with peace of mind, knowing that you understand that you do not need to be an egotistical jackass over a very minute subject in the grand scale of things, whether it's music, movie, social media, or even what you had for lunch. Because let's face it, if we all bitched about what we had for lunch, everybody would starve to death and die. And that's my 2 cents.
Well, I mean, I got nothing else to add to that except we all know pineapple belongs on pizza. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Peace out.